Good morning to one and all. In the previous class, we discussed different points regarding this groundwater table location. First of all, we need to know about what is the controlling of groundwater. It means previous class we discussed what are the different parameters which acts on the groundwater and design of this groundwater techniques. That means how we have to locate this groundwater depth by using different philosophies. And in this class we have to know about this controlling of groundwater. What is the purpose? That means the main purpose of the controlling of groundwater is if there is a water, automatically we have a problem with our construction work, so that we are eliminating this water whichever locating on a particular soil, so that it will be free for our construction work, so that whatever the field we have to work, it will be have in a dry condition. Next one, we have to separate the total water by constructing a small perhaps like the, and the total soil will be in dry condition by using a different pre-drainage techniques. And these are the different conditions we need to maintain while in a construction. Provide a dry excavation to permit construction process efficiently. That means dry excavation means we need to excavate the soil in dry condition only. In wet condition means we have to use a much more money for our earthwork. And next one, reduce lateral loads means if there is a water means automatically there will be lateral loads. Automatically these lateral loads normally comes in the form of wind and other. Automatically wind plus water equal to we have to face a huge amount of loads on the structure in foundation level only. If the foundation is automatically weakened, the total structure will falls rapidly. Next one, stabilize quick bottom conditions and prevent heaving and piping. Quick bottom conditions means normally the surrounding soil will have a much strength relatively equal to the normal foundation level, so that we need to densify that soil by these quick bottom conditions without having any water. Improve support characteristics by foundation material means supporting characteristics means normally we are filling this stone dust and other fine grained materials for giving support to the foundation. That means support means normally I will draw, it is a normal foundation, so that the foundation will have to exert the forces likely, okay, so that the forces direction will be in the total forces will have to move to the ground. That means whenever the forces will move automatically, if there is a bond between the surrounding soil strata, automatically the forces will move. If there is no bond means automatically the total structure will sink down. So to prevent sink down, and we need to have some amount of bonding with the further material, so that we need to improve supporting characteristics in foundation material. Okay, if the supporting characteristics are very high, automatically the structure will withstand for a long life. If the structure is constructed for 100 years, the total structure will be retained for minimum 120 to 130 years if the foundation is so strong. Next one, increase stability of excavation slopes and side hill fields. That means normally sorry for the small interruption. Normally we have to use this kind of excavation work for footings and others. Likely I will give small example. These are the structure having two footings, so that if the structure is located with this kind of strata, automatically there may be some amount of fall down of matter onto the foundation. So that to prevent those kind of fall downs, we have to use a slopey structure, so that this is the slopey structure. In this kind of structure, we don't have a falling of material onto the foundation. We have to do our work as easy as possible, and we need to fill materials by small layers. But in case of the previous one, we are having a box like structure. In case of those box like structure, we have to fill the materials in a rapidly. Why? Because there is a less quantity of volume, so that there may be filling with high pressures and high forces. But in case of this, a small drop down of materials will take place in edges conditions, so that there may be definite of particular filling with a huge density conditions. Next one, cut off capillary rise of prevent piping and forced heaving in pavements. That means cut off capillary rise. Capillary rise means the total soil is in the form of strata. It is a ground level. Okay, if there is no water, automatically, if there is a water means automatically there may be some amount of shrinkage or swelling. Shrinkage means normally decrement of volume. Swelling means increment of volume. We need to prevent those two to sustain our buildings. To sustain those kind of situations, we need to prevent this rise of capillary. That means capillary rise means if there is a water, automatically rise will be there in the form of capillary, so that we need to prevent the entrainment of water by simply cut off these capillary rises. Next one, reduce air pressures means if there is a air pressure, automatically there may be some quantity of lifting mechanism. Normally the we will observe in these tires, if there is no air in a proper tire, automatically the vehicle will have to face some amount of dropping conditions. Normally we are having a 4 tires for a car. In one tire there is no quantity of air means automatically the car will bends in one direction due to lack of air. Likely simply we have to reduce these air pressures in different operations. That means if we have to reduce the air pressure, automatically there may be some amount of chance of easy working. If the air pressure is more, automatically there may be some amount of bursting like chances, or those will be leads to a heavy damage to the structure. Automatically we have to use a proper air pressure within the structure. That means if the in the foundation level there may be air pressure means automatically there it will be leads to a lifting. If the air pressure decreases means automatically it will leads to shrinking, so that we need to have to maintain a proper air pressure. Proper air pressure means automatically the air pressure is also related to this availability of groundwater. Automatically groundwater means if the availability of groundwater is much more means automatically there may be a huge quantity of air pressure with respect to this water. Likely those water and air pressure are directly proportional. Next one, what are the post construction stages? All we seen are the pre construction stages before. Here we are having these post construction stages. What are those? First one, reduce or eliminate uplift pressures on bottom slab and permit economics from the reduction of slab thickness from basements to buried structures, canal linings, spillways, dried docks, etc. Here we are having reduce or eliminate uplift pressures. Previously we are observing this air pressure. That means those air pressure is also having a capability to lift the structure. Normally I will give an example. If the car having 4 tires, if one of the tire having huge amount of air pressure means automatically there may be some amount of unevenness to the structure of car. Likely in our soil strata also we are having a proper air pressure. Automatically those pressure having equilibrium to the structure. If there is an equilibrium in the particular structure means automatically one foundation will be on one level, another foundation will be on particular of change. That means increment of decrement of height with respect to ground level, so that those heights we have to maintain in a proper manner. If the heights are irregular means automatically uplifting will be takes place. Those uplifting will be, I will show, this is the total structure is on particular ground level. Okay, if the air pressure is more air pressure, automatically there will be some increment of volume. Likely increment of volume means automatically the structure has to face some amount of deformation. Due to those deformations the slabs will have to face some amount of cracks. In some of the countries and some of the areas, we have to observe these cracks will be on bottom side or top side of a slab. Those are due to if there is any settlement, automatically the here we have to do settlement. That means automatically here we have one side settlement and one side uplift. So that we have to face settlement, automatically top surface will be top surface. It is top surface. We have to bear some amount of cracks due to these settlements. Uplift means in the bottom surface. We have to observe these cracks. So that if the structure will have to retain as a crack free structure, we have to focus on these uplift pressures. If the uplift pressure is more, automatically the structure have to face more amount of cracks. If the cracks are more, automatically there may be chance of this expansion of this reinforcement by simply absorbing surrounding moisture in the atmosphere. Automatically if there is a moisture to the reinforcement means there may be some amount of increment of volume. Those will leads to decrement of strength of steel. If there is automatically decrement of strength of steel means there may be no proper stress distribution from concrete to steel. If at all there is less distribution of stress means there may be some amount of weakness, direct weakness to the structure. Automatically when we are applying a small kind of loads on the structure, simply a small scraps will be falling down. That means మనకి చిన్న చిన్న మొక్కలు అనేవి స్ట్రక్చర్స్లో ఊడిపోతూ ఉంటాయి. అవి ఎందువల్ల అంటే ఈ యొక్క పారామీటర్స్, ఆల్ దోస్ ఆర్ ద different parameters directly responsible for the falling of structures. So we need to mind those things whenever we are getting a design. We have a proper soil. The soil is not good, automatically the total invested money will be wasting. Those are the one kind of example for the bottom slabs we are observing. After that we need to go for economics, means those are all related to money. That means those cracks will cause a further treatment of the slab. Those further treatment involves directly in the form of economics, so that we need to invest an extra amount of money for the repairing of slabs and rehabilitation of the slabs. Those are also a money process. And the reduction of slab thickness is from basements, so that to decrease those kind of cracks we need to decrease the size of the slab. Normally we are maintaining a d by 15, that means total length we are having, the total length by 15 we will get the thickness of the slab in the according to RCC, so that we will have a better minimum thickness of slab equal to 150 mm or 15 centimeters. Likely depends upon it's the length of the slab. If the Ly by Lx ratio we are having, length in x direction and length in y direction, both are related to one way slab or two-way slab. If the Ly by Lx ratio is less than 2, it will leads to two-way slab. Greater than 2 means automatically it leads to one-way slab. So that we have to go for different designs to reduce these cracks. After that we have to choose this basement buried structure. That means whenever the basement of the structure is buried under a quantity of soil, the soil having different parameters of percolation of water and other unavoided things, all those leads to this structural failure. Next one, this canal linings. Normally canals, those canals are normally we are using for the purpose of flowing of water. That means transferring water from reservoirs to fields. That means reservoir is a one kind of structure which is having a which is have to store a large quantity of water which is available in rainy seasons. That means nowadays we are having a huge quantity of rains are falling in our state, so that we need to store all those quantity of water in the reservoirs and dams. If the dams are fully with water, automatically we need to drop down some quantity of water by lifting gates if there is a huge quantity of water. Otherwise we have to store all those water our future purpose. Okay, these canals and other are associated with these reservoirs and dams. Automatically if there is a dam means there may be some canal system to different areas. That means the canals are associated with these dams and reservoirs. If the flow of water means automatically there may be some amount of friction between water surface to the canal surface. Automatically in different areas due to rapid movement of this water from dams to the canals, the top layer will be eroded easily. Why? Because huge quantity of water is flowing with a speed, so that those speed will be directly proportional to this erosion. Due to those erosion also some amount of quantity of material will be lost in, so that we need to do these canal linings whenever, means automatically this canal linings has to be takes place in summer season. Why? Because in the summer season there is no quantity of water lies on these canals, so that we need to do this kind of canal linings in summer season. Those canal linings also depends upon this flow of water. Next one, spillways. That means normally these spillways we have to observe with respect to these reservoirs and dams also. Spillways also, those spillways are used for the discharge of water through these hydropower tunnels and other canals. Normally in small quantity we have to use regulators, but in case of large quantity of water we have to use these spillway channels. And next one is the dry docks. These dry docks are normally appears in the coastal areas. That means whenever there is a lining between this soil layer and sea water, automatically there may be some amount of intrusion of this salt water into the soil. To arrest those intrusion of salt water into the soil layers, we have to use these dry docks and other conditions. Next one, provide a provide for dry basements. Dry basement means, normally basement means at the level of ground, those area will called as a basement layer. So that we need to provide a dry basement layer for the construction process. It will be as easy to our constructors. Next one, reduce lateral pressures on the retaining structures. What is a lateral pressure? Means normally in a different structures we are observing these lateral pressures in the form of shear forces and other forces. If the lateral pressure is high, automatically there may be falling of structure or breakdown of structure. To arrest those fallings and breakdowns, we need to reduce this attainment of lateral forces on the structures. Simply these retaining structures means these national highways we are having these retaining structures. That means normally the total highway is meant for a 6 lane or 4 lane, so that we are having a solid layers in the form of hexagonal patterns and square patterns. All those are retaining structures. Those retaining structures will help the national highways to stress free structure. That means the stress will be zero due to this having of retaining structures. Next one, controlling of embankment seepage in dams. That means embankment seepage. Seepage means there may be some amount of water intrusion. Due to the intrusion, the water will flow from one place to another place due to this seepage property. If there is a water intrusion, automatically this seepage will have a more quantity. If there is less water means automatically there may be some less quantity of seepage. So that we need to control these embankment seepage in dams by providing a solid PVC layer. That means polyvinyl chloride layer. Normally this PVC are daily we are using in the form of carry bags and other, so that those bags we need to use at the surface of these dams to arrest those seepage into the subsurfaces and below the subsurfaces, so that we have to give a solid lining with this polyvinyl chloride layers. All those are resist to arrest this water entrainment. Those entrainment will having a big problem to the dams and others. Next one, we need to have this controlled seepage and pore pressures beneath the pavements, side hills, fields and cut slopes. Normally in a transportation purpose and tourism places, we are having these huge structures are associated with these pavements and side hill fields. That means side hill fields means normally in many historical places are associated with these hill falls. That means hilly areas. Whenever we need to go from bottom to the top of the hill, we have to lay down a particular quantity of road work. But in case of these rainy seasons, due to entrainment of water, those soil will be weakened and the water, due to the water, and the total mud particles will be fall onto the road layers. So that due to arresting of those mud part intrusion on the particular road layers, we have to construct these retaining walls on a particular hilly areas, so that we have to arrest those kind of intrusions in the form of a solid lining of concrete or any other PVC lining, likely previously we discussed in PVC lining or solid lining. All those are comes under this ground improvement techniques. Why? Because by using those all linings and other things, we need to strengthen the structure, and we have to use for a long lasting time. Next one, what are the different methods? Exclusion techniques and dewatering techniques. That means previously were observed different terms, that means different forms of failures of structures due to entrainment of water and groundwater table. What is a groundwater? At what depth we have to face this groundwater? What are the different technologies to find out the depth of the groundwater? Normally we are using this solid core lining and Dewar's methods for the finding of this groundwater level. But in case of these methods, first of all, we are having exclusion techniques and dewatering techniques. What is the exclusion technique? Exclusion techniques, the methods in which a very low permeability discrete wall or barrier is physically inserted or constructed in the ground. After that, we are having in brackets sheet piling or diaphragm walls. Sheet piling you won't have observed. I will show with the help of diagrams. Normally, it is a square area, means a area with the form of square shape, so that in the sides, all those are the sides. Okay, these are the sides of that particular area. We need to use these sheet pilings and diaphragm walls to arrest the entrainment of water into our field, so that it is a only top view. In the side view, we have to use this kind of sheet piles. This is the one. Okay, this is the only one layer. That means this is the top view, this is the front view of a particular structure. In the, we are having different sheet piles. Okay, these are the sheet piles which are fixed one to another. That means the end of the sheet pile associated with another member. Likely the total members are having some amount of bond, so that due to those bond there will be no entrainment of water from the surrounding fields, so that it will be a water tight structure. It is the main philosophy behind this sheet pilings and diaphragm walls. If the structure is so loose, we need to go for these sheet pilings. That means some kind of these metallic sheets are inserted into the ground level by using these construction equipments. But in case of this diaphragm walls, we have to dig a large quantity of matter, and throughout the periphery of the particular area, we have to construct these diaphragm walls by using this rocky and another binding materials. Those will act as a barriers to obstruct the entrainment of water, so that we have to construct a low permeable structures. Next one, a methods which reduce the permeability in situ ground. That means grouting and artificial ground freezing. Here we are having two techniques. First one is the grouting method. Normally the grouting term we are associated with the concrete technology. That means in the concrete technology last chapters we have understanding, we have studied these grouting methods. That means if it is structure, the structure will have to, normally in our faces we are using some amount of makeup, like in the form of powder or any other artificial creams, so that those creams are responsible for us to give a artificial beautiness or some amount of clearness to our face. Likely in the soil itself also we have to give some amount of extra coating in the form of binding materials with a huge amount of pressure. Why? Because normally we are simply applying a cement paste with the help of this tapis and others. Those will not give a strength. Whenever we are giving a particular quantity of material with a huge pressure, so that there will be a huge quantity of bond formation, and we are using some amount of artificial gels. Those gels are responsible for the rapid bond formation between particle to particle, so that due to those rapid formation of the bonds between the particles, there may be no chance of entrainment of water. Those techniques are called grouting. Normally grouting means we need to fix a material with high pressure and intention. Next one, we are having artificial ground freezing. That means it is a artificial ground freezing. Normally this freezing term is associated with this fridges and others. Normally in our deep fridges we are having a temperature less than 5 degrees or 10 degrees, so that the total water will be in the stage of solid stage. Likely we have to use some amount of these chemicals for artificial freezing techniques in our ground, so that the water will not move furtherly. Automatically the total water will be in the freezing state. It is the second stage. First of all, we are using sheet piles and diaphragm walls. In second stage we are using these grouting methods and freezing techniques. After that, we are having methods which are useful for fluid pressure in confined chambers, such as tunnels to encounter balanced groundwater pressures, compressed air, and earth pressure balancing or boring machines. This is the third technique. Normally in many of the structures they are using to remove the quantity of water. First of all, they have to use different fluid pressure confined chambers. That means fluid pressure means automatically due to the pressure they are totally extracting the quantity of water available in the field itself. But in some of the cases the groundwater pressures also having a tendency to leak the water or distribute the water, so that compressed air will be flowing onto the earth. Due to this compressed air, the total water will be leaves from the surface. I will show. This is a particular quantity of soil. In the soil we are having some amount of water in the form of these voids, so that whenever there is a flow of air, this is the air, automatically those water will move in different directions, so that the structure is a water free structure. Due to this compressed air and earth pressure balance tunnel boring machines, those are also leads to a water free structures. Those three are the exclusion techniques. After that, we are having these dewatering techniques. What are the dewatering techniques? Why? Because the total second chapter is associated with these dewatering techniques. First of all, we have to use this gravity flow. What is meant by gravity? Means the gravity is a free occurring force on the earth itself. Whenever we are throwing a particular quantity of stone onto the earth, it will simply collect rebacks to the earth's surface because of these gravitational forces. Likely in the below the surfaces of the earth also we are having such quantity of these gravitational forces, so those gravitational forces we have to use for the purpose of dewatering techniques. Next one, pumping and vacuum. Pumping means normally we have to use artificial kinds of pumps to remove the water. And the next one, vacuum. That means vacuum means we have to use a high pressure to remove the water. Third one, we are having electro osmosis. Osmosis means normally this osmosis is a current related process. That means whenever we are inserting this anode and cathode into the earth layers, those anode and cathode will having a capacity for dewatering techniques. Likely we are using this water in our structure. That means in our localities or in our rooms or any other, we are using these boilers. Normally these boilers are used for the heating purpose of water. Likely this electro osmosis technique also leads to one of the boiler principle, so that These anode and cathode will directly penetrating into the earth surface. Those will have a tendency to evaporate the water whichever is present in the particular soil strata. So that this electroosmosis principle is related to this electronics, the electrical regulation. First one we are having exclusion techniques. After that we have to go for this dewatering techniques. We are having these diagrams. That means those diagrams are simply understandable. First of all, cut-off walls which are penetrating a very low permeable stratums. That means those two are the cut-off walls constructed in our field to regulate the entrainment of water. First of all, on the top surface we are having this groundwater level. Okay, the groundwater level. Below the groundwater level we are having a total quantity of groundwater. We need to arrest those entrainment of groundwater into our field by simply constructing these cut-off walls. Okay, this is the major principle in the cut-off walls. Cut-off walls penetrate into the very low permeable stratum. Very low permeable stratum. That means here we are having a sump of aid draining trapped water and remove the water leaking through the cut-offs. Next one exclusion technique we are having is the second method. That means dewatering wells. On either side of the cut-off walls we have to use these dewatering wells. That means normally small diameter holes are inserted into the earth surface. Those leads to this dewatering techniques. That means simply by using those wells we need to remove the water by pipes and these machines. That means centrifugal pumps or reciprocating pumps, whatever, depending upon the depth of the hole we have to use. Either it may be centrifugal or reciprocal. Centrifugal pumps are used for the small scale of heights. Reciprocating pumps are used for large depths. Next one we are having these cut-off walls for the purpose of horizontal barrier to seal the base. That means the total bottom surface also leads to entrainment of water into our field, so that we need to stabilize the ground by constructing a horizontal barrier. We are having is a vertical cut-off walls, but in case of horizontal strata there is no in the previous cases. But in the diagram we are having horizontal barrier also to seal the base. Why we are sealing means automatically if there is a sealing material there is no entrainment of water into our fields. Next one we are having is the displacement barriers. What are those displacement barriers? Normally we are observing these steel sheet pilings and vibrating beam walls, excavated barriers. In those excavated barriers we are having a slurry trench wall using cement bentonite or soil bentonite. That means bentonite normally. Bentonite means a chemical solution which is having a tendency to arrest the water. Next one, concrete diaphragm walls, bored pipe walls. All those are the different techniques. We are having a separate phenomena with those in the future chapters. That means third chapter, fourth chapter, fifth chapter, sixth chapter. We are having these phenomena used in the different cases. Next one, injection barriers. These injection barriers are normally permission of rock grouting using cement based grouts, chemical and solution grouts, jet grouting, mix in place walls. All those are associated with this. Grouting means normally previously we discussed with a huge force we are grouting all these chemical substances onto the soil fields, so that those will lead to a tight structure without entraining of water. Next one we are having these thermal barriers. Those thermal barriers associated with this electroosmosis techniques. Artificial ground freezing using a brine or liquid nitrogen. Normally these are the chemicals not related to electroosmosis. These are related to this freezing techniques. Thermal barriers means freezing techniques. Artificial ground freezing using brine means normally a sodium oxide solution, NaOH. Sodium oxide or sodium chloride solution, we are call it as a brine solution. This brine solution we are used in our chemistry. And after that we are having this liquid nitrogen. Normally this liquid nitrogen we are using in our refrigerators and air conditioners as a cooling agent. This is having a minus degrees so that it will be useful for our freezing and thawing effects in our structures to counteract this entrainment of waters. Next one is we are having these tunneling methods. In these tunneling methods normally we are using this compressed air. That means whenever we are compressing means automatically due to those compression forces, whatever the water present in the structure, all those water will be flowing into the another strata of the structure or another fields. Next one EBB to EBM. It is another technique we didn't having in our syllabus. Okay, after that we have to go for these dewatering techniques. What are the dewatering techniques we are having? First one, gravity flow method. So that what is a gravity flow method? How we have to associate with this gravity flow method to decrease the groundwater flow? First of all, this is the less costly method. That means we need to spend a less money. That means in the previous methods we are having these ground freezing methods, short heating methods, and all those methods having a materials we are using, so that the materials also having some quantity of money, so that there also leads to a economics of the, those are related to economics, that means related to money. So when we go for this gravity flow method, it is a cheap process compared to all of those, and we need within the low cost we need to work our structure with a as a water free structure. This is a less costly method. The site is drained through channels placed at intervals. That means intervals means with a frequent change of these gaps. I will show. This is a normal field. In those normal field we have to use these wells with a proper gaps between them. That means in the x-axis we have to give one kind of gap between the bore to bore. Okay, the same gap will be for all the direction. In y-axis we have to give one kind of gap from bore to bore. It will depends upon the total quantity of water which will be available on the particular ground. If the water quantity is very high, the distance between the boreholes is less. If the water quantity is very less, the distance between the boreholes is very high. So that we need to remember. The total borehole data will be directly proportional to the availability of the groundwater in the field itself. The site is drained through these channels placed at intervals. That means interval length will be depends upon the quantity of water available on our field. So that this method has been used for thousands of years. Because in olden days also these methods are used. That means thousands of years means now we are in 2020. Since 1000, after AC 1000, this method was using for dewatering techniques. That means Romans and other simply Greeks and Persians, all are those involved these methods. That means all are those used these methods for dewatering purpose and construction purpose. It has a disadvantage of requiring a long time to properly drain the land. Means we have to wait for a huge span of time. That means normally previous methods having a dewatering of within a 1 week or 2 weeks, but this method will take a months of 60 days or 30 days, so that it is a time lagging process. Whenever we are having a huge quantity of time for construction process, we need to employ this process into our field. If it is a short span of time, we have to go for another alternative method by simply neglecting this gravity flow method. After that we are having this pumping and vacuum method. Pumping means normally we are using these motors, whatever the motor means, which are useful for our structures for a large span of depths, means d values. This method is more expensive than gravity. Means why? Because simply here we are using a motors in the form of money. Why? Because for generating the electrical power we have to use some amount of money, and simply we have to rent the motors, all those related to money. so that it is some amount of costly process compared to this gravity method. Next one, but this is a faster in results. Why? Because the total quantity of water will be driving by using this motor, so that the process will be fastening. Within the days, we have to get the result. We will get the result. It requires pumps and suck in the water and water out by soil and other remove the distance placed by the river and lake. That means if there is any river or lake surrounding to our structure, so that the total soil will having a huge quantity of water, so that the water will be removed by using this pumping of vacuum method. Next one, we are having electroosmosis. This method is most expensive. Why? Because we are using an external current directly feeding into the ground level, so that will having a huge amount of money. It is only effective method for dewatering in deep clay soils. Means whenever there is a water in deep level in the clay soils, so that this electroosmosis method will be useful.